Hey, hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar on managing exam stress. My name is Sophia, and today with my colleague Shanae, we will be talking to you about what exam stress is and how you can manage this. So we both work in the Waltham Forest Mental Health Support Team, and our team is based in schools around the borough, and our aim is to support the well-being of young people like you. So we do one-to-one support as well directly with the young people, but we also do workshops such as this one in person in the schools and online. So let's get started. Before we get into the main thing, a little disclaimer is that this video is for informational purposes only. And if you're experiencing a crisis, you can call 111, or if it's an emergency, where yours or someone else's safety is in danger, please call 999 or go to your local A&E. Okay, so in today's webinar, we'll be covering the following topics. So hopefully we'll give you a chance to think about how you feel about exams and recognize how you feel about them. And then we will teach you ways that you can manage your stress before, during, and after exams. And hopefully by the end of the webinar, you'll feel more prepared to take exams.
So today, the structure of the webinar will be that we speak about tips to use before the exam, during the exam, and after the exam. So before the exam, the first thing we are going to cover is talking about sleep. So having enough sleep is very important to get you prepared for your exams so that your brain has enough time to digest everything that you've learned, and also that your body has enough time to rest before your exams. So it's very important to try and have a sleep schedule. So having a routine in terms of the time you go to bed and the time you wake up and keeping that consistent. Also aiming for 8 to 10 hours of sleep, which is the recommended hours for your age group. Also trying to have a pre-bed routine also could be called a wind down routine or winding down. And this is things that you do to help you relax and get your body prepared to sleep. So these could be things like putting your phone away, maybe you light a candle, have a nice shower or hot bath, just things that you do to get your body prepared to sleep. And this will ensure that you either maybe fall asleep quicker or you can stay asleep once you get to sleep. Next one is trying to limit artificial light 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Artificial light can include your phone light, laptops, any screens, TV, etc. And limiting this before bedtime for 30 to 60 minutes will also help you to fall asleep and stay asleep. So these are the things that you can try to do before your exams in terms of your sleep. The next thing is focusing on your diet. So in terms of what you eat, this will determine how much energy you have and how alert you're going to be in your exams. It also can help with your concentration and your memory. So by eating well, it keeps your blood sugar levels at a good level, and this avoids you having too high levels or too low levels. So when you have too high or too low levels, you might find that you crash and feel more tired, or that you have just loads and loads of energy, but then also that could lead to you crashing. So sometimes the foods that are recommended are to eat slow releasing foods. So foods that release energy over a period of time. These things could be bread, rice, pasta, fruit, and vegetables. And these can also help you have energy for longer. Also, it's very important to keep hydrated. So drinking lots of water is also important. And a lot of people underestimate how much hydration helps. It's also good to keep a bottle of water with you to take into the exam hall if that's allowed, just to keep you hydrated as well.
Hey, and the third thing you can do in preparation for your exam is self-care. So that's probably quite a buzzword that you've heard flying around, but self-care is really important because it can help you have a healthy balance. So a lot of us, when we get stressed about studying, all we want to do is study all the time. But in the long term, that's not really good for your health. So self-care includes making time for other things as well, such as showering, eating regularly, just like Shanae said, and eating good kinds of foods as well. being active, so leaving the house sometimes, going for a walk, doing some kind of exercise. Also, just making time to do things that you love and enjoy. It doesn't have to always be studying. And also talking to yourself in a positive way or in a loving way rather than maybe criticizing yourself or being really harsh on yourself. So these are all also really important ways that you can ensure that you're well prepared for your exams. So, in relation to self-care, one way that you can kind of think about how you can take care of yourself is to use this table that we have on the screen right now. So, you can see a thermometer on the left, and we use that thermometer to show how much stress you're experiencing. So, kind of the lower thermometer levels, like the 1 to 5-ish, I guess, are kind of you're not very stressed or you're just a little stressed. And then it goes up to 10 when you're feeling really stressed and overwhelmed. And you can use this table to identify how you feel, the thoughts that you have, and how you behave when you're in these different zones of stress. And then that can help you identify what can you do when you're in that zone to help you kind of take care of yourself and get back into a lower sense, like feeling more relaxed and less stressed about things. So I'll go through some of the table with you. So in terms of feelings, for example, this person identified that in the lower levels, like 2 to 4, they might feel that their shoulders tense up. So that tells them that they're getting stressed. But when they get really stressed, like 5 to 7, they get hot and sweaty, their heart starts racing and they breathe faster. And then when they feel really overwhelmed, like on level 10, they feel like they can't breathe, they feel sick, and they have a heart pounding really quickly and strong. So that kind of helps to think about, where recognizing how you feel, because sometimes that's really hard to do as well, to recognize how we're feeling. And this may be different for different people. So, you may feel some of these or none of these in your own case. But it's really helpful to kind of take the time to think about what's your signs of how stressed you are. And then the same thing with your thoughts. So, what's going on in your head? What kind of thoughts are you having when you're feeling different levels of stress? And then finally, the behaviors. So, what do you do when you're feeling those levels of stress? For example, this person, when they're feeling a little stressed, they might procrastinate. But then when they get really stressed, they might freeze or withdraw or ignore other people or reject other people trying to help them. And it might be really hard for you to kind of see the kind of behaviors you're doing. So it might not be easy at first to fill this out. So you can take your time, maybe come back to it, and also ask other people, like maybe your friends, ask them, what do they notice in you? What do you do when you get stressed? Or maybe someone close to you, like a family member, that can help you identify your patterns. And then once you kind of know this and you know yourself and you can recognize in yourself, okay, right now I'm in the really high levels of stress, then you can go to the green kind of column on the right, which is about the strategies you can try. And again, this will be very different for everyone, but different people will have different kind of strategies that they like depending on how stressed they feel. So this person, when they're not that stressed, they like writing a list. But when they're really stressed, they need to scream into a pillow or go for a run or do breathing exercises. So what works for you will be different depending on how stressed you are and also depending on your own personality. So we'll be talking about different strategies in a little bit. We'll also do some breathing exercises together and things like that. So don't worry if you're not sure, but there's a good chance you're already doing things to try to manage your stress that is helpful for you. So, kind of writing that down and then going back to it when you feel stressed and seeing, reminding yourself, oh, yeah, I could do this to help myself. That can be a good way to deal with the stress that you're feeling. Okay. And I guess kind of related to that, we also recommend developing what we call a toolbox. So a toolbox is really, it can be an actual physical toolbox or it can just be an imaginary one, but it's kind of a collection of different strategies that help you manage your stress. So as I mentioned before, for some people it might be exercise, like going to play football or going on a run. For other people, it might be socializing, like seeing their friends, just going to the mall with some people, Or it might be lots of other things, like maybe you like meditating, you've tried that before, or you do yoga or some breathing exercises. As I said, we'll cover some of these in a bit, but it's really helpful to kind of have a think about what are your different tools that you're already using, and maybe what are some you could try out, or some new ones that you could explore to help you kind of feel less stressed. And I guess to summarize this whole before section, it can be helpful to take the time to write down a little plan for yourself. And we recommend thinking about all the different ways that we just talked about, all the different topics that we just talked about that you might need support with to prepare for the exams. So we talked about eating, sleeping, self-care. So, is there anything that you think you can do, or maybe someone else can do for you, that you can help yourself with this topic if you need support? For example, you might think my eating's fine, but I really struggle with sleep. So then what can you do? Or maybe you need to improve both of those. So yeah, we kind of thought about ways you can support yourself with eating, with sleeping, with self-care, maybe with your revision schedule, and maybe with things that your self-talk. So the way you talk to yourself, and what are the kind of things you tell yourself. Like maybe is there a way that you can be more positive or more encouraging to yourself? So this can be just something you can write down for yourself and have, or you can just have a think about it in general.
So this slide is about how to prepare the night before your exam. So the first thing, it'll be a good idea to double check the time and venue of the exam you're due to sit, just to make sure that you're going to the right place and you've got the right time, because exams can happen at different times in the day, and you might sometimes get things muddled up in your head while you're busy revising for your exams. Get all of your equipment ready. So pens, pencils, calculator if you need it, anything that you need for your exam, just making sure you have all of that and extras just in case. And then, as we said with the sleep, go into bed early so that you're getting enough rest. Even if sleep doesn't come easily to you, that can happen when there's a lot on your mind, but just making sure that you're in bed, ready for bed, and making sure that you're resting. The next one is the day of their exam. So this is kind of the during section. So the first one, as we mentioned before with foods, trying to have a good breakfast. So foods that are slow releasing in energy, drinking lots of water again, so you stay hydrated, and this could include teas, as well as just plain water. Give yourself enough time to get to the exam halls, arriving early at school, and then making sure that you have enough time to get to the exam hall, and remembering everything you need to take. So you might make a list before, or you might just make sure you check your bag every morning to make sure you have all of your equipment, just in case, because I know like sometimes you can get overwhelmed and forget things, and it might be good to make sure you have a bottle of water and maybe just a snack to have afterwards. Then this slide is about the day of the exam and what you can do with your thoughts and feelings and behaviors in order to make you feel more settled. So when we talk about worries and anxiety, we link them to your thoughts and how this can link to your feelings, and then this can link to your behaviors and what you do. So in terms of your thoughts, the more you have positive thoughts and the more you kind of tell yourself positive things, the better you'll feel inside, and this will help with your behavior. So, some of the examples of positive thoughts you can have on the day of your exam is saying to yourself, I can only do my best. I've prepared for this. I'm nervous, but that's natural. And this is a chance to show them what I know. Show the teachers what you know, show the examiners what you know. These things are more positive ways of talking to yourself. This can help you feel more determined, more focused. You might feel nervous, but this is normal to feel nervous during your exam. You might feel a little bit of butterflies and sweaty palms, but these are all normal feelings to have on the day of your exam. Then your behaviors will be that you will follow your plan. So any plans that you had in terms of preparing for exam and during the exam, you're following that, and you're using these strategies that we're going to go through later on in the webinar. You set your exams and you use your positive self-talk strategies. So the more you do that, the more you're going to have more positive thoughts and you're going to feel more focused and more ready for your exam. So it's just a reminder and remembering that your thoughts link to your feelings, which links to your behavior. So the more you have more positive behaviors, such as the strategies we're going to go through, the more positive your thoughts will be, and the better you'll feel and the more determined and prepared you'll feel for your exams.
Great. So, as Sinead mentioned, one of the strategies that we'll now cover is what you can do in the moment during the exam, but also in the preparation for it, like at any point and actually any time in your life when you feel stressed or overwhelmed, you feel like you need to calm down, is breathing exercises. So, you might have heard of breathing exercises before. You may even know some of these, but we're just going to go through them together for the benefit of everyone. So the first one is the 7-11 breathing. And it's really simple because basically all you have to do is breathe in for 7 seconds and then breathe out for 11 seconds. So the idea of that is the longer you breathe out, the more relaxed you'll feel. So this is kind of trying to extend your breath and also make your breath like longer and deeper, because the longer and deeper you take your breath, the more relaxed your body will be. And then the next one, the square breathing, I will demonstrate. But maybe in an exam you're not going to do it like me, but you can do it like on your palm or just in your mind. But basically, you can imagine that you draw a square with your finger, and every time you draw one side, you kind of go up and you breathe in, then you hold, then you breathe out. Then you hold, you breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. And you just do this for as long as you need. So again, as I said, you can just do it in your hand, it can be quite nice, or in your mind's eye. And the final one is called hand breathing or 5-finger breathing. And for this one, we're going to use one of our hands, and with the other index finger, we're going to trace the outline of this hand. And every time we go upwards, we will breathe in, and every time we go down, we breathe out. So we'll start here together. Breathe in, and then breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Right. So these are just all the different ways that you can slow down your breathing, which will help you feel more relaxed and calm and more be able to concentrate better on your exam as well. And then the other technique that we recommend that you can do during your exam, but again at any other time as well, is a grounding exercise. So grounding exercise is a kind of mindfulness exercise. And the point of it is to bring you to the present moment. So sometimes our minds get flooded with thoughts about, the future, worries, or even the past. So maybe in the exam you could think, oh, I should have revised that. Like, why did I not revise an extra hour last night? Or maybe you'll think, this is going so terribly, like what will happen to me later? You could have all these different stress thoughts, but actually it can be helpful to just bring your attention back to what is happening in the present moment rather than getting too caught up in your thoughts. So that's what the grounding exercise does. So we will demonstrate the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, which is really simple. So the different numbers, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, are linked to your different senses. And for each number, you have to do an action with that sense. So for 5, we have to look around the room and find 5 things that we can see and describe them in our head. So for example, if I look around my room, I see a lamp, a desk lamp that's black, and I see a post-it notes that are pink and square, etc. So you look around the room and just find 5 different things and describe them in your head in detail. And then for 4, we think of 4 things that we can touch. So, just kind of touching what's around you. What does it feel like? Just think to yourself, maybe I can feel the desk and it feels hard and cold. Maybe I can feel my clothes and they feel soft and fuzzy. And just finding those different things that you can feel, your touch sensation. And then 3 is what can you hear? So 3 things that you can hear in your room. You can even close your eyes. That can be helpful to kind of sharpen your hearing sense. But yeah, what can you hear? You'll probably hear, pencils or pens moving on the paper, maybe someone walking around, someone coughing, something like that. And then for 2, it's what can you smell? 2 things that you can smell. So probably, you'll be able to smell whatever's in the air, maybe your clothes, your hair, anything like that. And then the last one is for your sense of taste. So what can you taste in your mouth? And then you can just take a deep breath. And then hopefully this exercise helped you kind of, bring your attention back to the present moment and feel a bit calmer. And there's other variations of this game exercise. If you feel like that's maybe too long or too difficult for you to remember, there's just one where you just name 3 of different colors objects in the room. So, you could be looking for 3 red objects, yellow objects in the room. Or you could even just look around the room for one color. So I'll just look around the room and find 10 things that are blue. So anything like that that kind of brings your attention to what's actually around you in this moment can be helpful as a grounding exercise.
Okay, so now we are talking about after the exams. So here are some tips for what you can do just after your exams are finished and in the time period after exams are finished. So after each exam, talk about how you have done, if that helps for you. Some people it doesn't help that they don't want to speak about the exams, which is absolutely fine. But if you feel like you want to get it off your chest, you might talk with friends, you might go home and tell your parents or siblings just to talk about their exam. But when you talk with your friends, don't get caught up in comparing answers and dwelling on mistakes you may have made. Because at the end of the day, the exam's finished, you did the best you could. And ultimately, we don't know who is right and who is wrong. But if you did feel like you made a mistake, just let it go, get it off your chest if you feel like you want to talk about it, and then you'll just focus on going the future and going ahead. Remembering that exam results mark the end of one phase in your life and the beginning of another. So it can be unsettling and difficult if you feel like you're worried and you've had really high expectations of yourself, but just speak with a trusted adult, and I'm sure this will help you to feel more relaxed and to feel less worried. But just remembering that now you're finished with this phase. So you might be finished with year 11 now. Now you're looking forward to sixth form, you're looking forward to college, studying different things, meeting new people, and just looking towards the future and being proud of yourself that you finished this phase of your life, you finished secondary school, and you're moving on, moving forward. And it could be nice to plan an event to mark the results. So, in terms of results day, you might decide you want to go out with friends and celebrate, go out with your family. You may also just celebrate the end of exams. So, after your last exam, you might go out and celebrate as well. Um, and just remembering it's not about what happened in the exam, it's just about who you are. You've done your best, and this is the end. And now you're looking forward to the future. And it can be really helpful to reward yourself and do something to mark the end of exams and results day. Some other things to consider are the alternative steps. So I'm sure that you will discuss this in detail with your schools, but just making sure that you prepare a backup plan so you know all your options and you know what's available for you. So this could be in terms of resits or getting your papers remarked. It could be going to do a BTEC diploma or further education. There might be apprenticeships available or other colleges. So just in case you feel like you don't know what you want to do or you didn't get the results you needed maybe to get into a certain college or a certain sixth form, just making sure that you have a backup plan so that you're prepared, and always discuss this with your parents and your teachers so that you can have enough guidance, because it can be very overwhelming to think about what's happening next, especially after just focusing on the end of your exams. But there are always, always loads of options. And this strategy that we are going to talk about is a way to recognize your worries and your thoughts and think about what you can do with that worry or thought. So, this on the screen is called the worry tree. So, at the top of the worry tree, you want to notice the worry. So, you might be worried that you didn't get the right result, you didn't put the right answer for one of the questions. What is the thought behind the worry? The thought might be, I didn't put the right answer behind my question, so now I'm going to fail my exam, for example. So you want to think, is this thought a problem? A problem would be an obstacle you have to get through to move forwards. A problem will be something that you can solve or come up with a solution for. Or is it a fear? Is it something that may or may not happen? Usually, often far in the future, and what we call hypothetical. So it may happen, it may not happen. So as you go down the worry tree, on the left-hand side, you can see that if it's a problem, you would ask yourself, can you fix it? If it's a yes, you would use a strategy called problem solving, which we go through next. If you are not sure, then maybe you could use problem solving or you could seek help. So you can ask someone for guidance. And if it's a no, you can't fix it, then maybe it is a fear. So you might go to the other side of the worry tree, or you might need to seek help because maybe it is a problem, but you're not able to see that it's a problem and you might need some guidance and talk to someone. So seeking help could be speaking to a teacher or a parent or just someone older who can provide you some guidance and reassurance. So that is the problem side, and we're going to go through problem solving next. The other side is a fear. So remembering that a fear is something that may or may not happen and it's usually often far in the future. So for the example I gave of you thinking that because you made a mistake in a question, you're going to fail your exams, this may or may not happen and it's far in the future because we don't know what the result will be until results day. So therefore, for this side of the worry tree, you would use a coping strategy. And on this side, it also says surf the wave. So just dealing with your feelings and emotions and just trying to manage them. So with this side of the worry tree, you could use one of the strategies that Sophia just mentioned in terms of breathing. So you could use a breathing strategy or a grounding strategy. And this will just help you to manage your worries and anxieties and also just feel more calm. Because at the end of the day, if it is a fear, it may or may not happen. So that ultimately there's nothing we can do about it in this moment. So for this side of the worry tree, it's just about remembering the strategies and using what works for you. And the other side of the worry tree, the problem solving, we'll be using problem solving, which we go through next, to find a solution for the thought or the worry.
Exactly. So as Shanae said, we will now look at what problem solving is as a strategy. So we find it helpful to give you an actual like step-by-step strategy for solving problems because sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming or it can be difficult to think of what a solution can be to a problem. So this helps you break it down basically. So the first step is what Shanae mentioned, just thinking about what is the problem. So just kind of putting it in a really clear way. So we will go through an example in a second, but it could be something like the problem is that I don't have time to study because I have too many clubs in the afternoons or something like that. And then step two, you would think of different ideas to solve the problem. So these are different solutions. And I think this step is really important because sometimes we can get really stuck on thinking about solutions. We can find it really hard to think of more than one solution or more than just the solution that first comes to our head. So I really encourage you to try to think of as many solutions as possible, even the ones that you think are not really good or kind of a bit silly. Anything goes for this stage. Just write down any solution that you can think of. And try to think of it, like from other people's perspective, maybe just kind of try to keep an open mind. And once we come up with all the different solutions, On the third step, we think of their pros and their cons. So the pros of the solutions are things that are good about the solution that we think could, go well, and that's why that's a good solution. Whereas the cons are things that are not good about that solution or that can go wrong. So, for example, maybe if my solution to my problem of going to too many after school clubs is to completely stop going to all of them, a pro could be I'll have more time, but a con could be that I'm not going to see any of my friends from those clubs anymore. And then the final column is it achievable? So is this something you can actually do? Because sometimes we may come up with solutions that actually we can't really do. So that's also an important thing to consider. And then after you've written down all the pros and all the cons to the solution, thought about if it's achievable or not, you can try to rate it if you want, or just think about how much do you like the solution now after seeing the pros and cons. Some people rate it like out of 10, like, oh, I think it's an 8 out of 10 or something. You don't have to do that, but you can. And then just comparing all the different solutions, you'll have them next to each other, so it'll be really easy. Pick your favorite. So, that will be really personal because it will be totally dependent on your personality, on your current circumstances. But just pick the one that you think, considering all the pros and all the cons, that's the best solution, and then give it a go. Give it a go and see how it goes. And then if it doesn't go so well, you can come back to this table, try another solution, or if it goes well, then that's great. So I'll go through an example quickly now to illustrate this technique. So this person's problem is that they're afraid that they're going to fail their chemistry exam. Okay, but this is before the exam. I mean, let's say the exam's in 2 weeks, so they have a bit of time, or maybe 3 weeks, let's say, or a month. So they have a bit of time until the exam. So there's something they can still do about this. So they come up with these different solutions. So the first solution this person came up with is to not go to the exam. They don't want to go. The second solution is to go to extra revision classes. And the third solution they came up with is to ask a friend to help them study. So what could be the pros? So the pros of the first solution could be that if that person doesn't go to their exam, they don't have to write the exam. So, it saves them all the stress of having to go there and write something that they know they're not doing very well on. But the cons would obviously be that they'll fail if they don't go. And in the long term, that's not going to be very good if they just don't show up to the exam that they find difficult, right? In terms of achievable, I guess it's achievable that they just don't go. But yeah, these are kind of the pros and cons of the first solution. For the second solution, the pros of going to extra revision classes are probably that they would help in the person learn chemistry better. But the cons could be that maybe that takes away time from their other subjects. Or maybe, yeah, like that's probably the biggest con, I guess. And in terms of is it achievable? Yeah, potentially it's achievable. I guess they'd have to find if there are revision, like extra classes and kind of figure that out a bit, but yeah, probably achievable. And then the third one is to ask friends to help them. The pros would be, maybe learning together with someone would help them motivate themselves, or maybe they would understand better if someone explained it to them rather than learning from a book. But obviously the cons could be that maybe that person will be busy or just not want to help them, or also maybe they just get distracted and do other things other than studying. But in terms of achievable, this could be also achievable as long as the friend is available. So now you see I kind of drawn up the pros and cons. Every person now will have a different conclusion on what's the best solution. I think personally myself, I would go with the extra revision classes as the solution. But you might think, oh, I'd prefer the friend. Like that's just personal. But this is a really good way of solving problems that you can apply not just to studying or exam related problems, but any problem in your life. Yeah, so it's a good one to remember.
Okay, so we've gone through the ways you can support yourself before the exam, ways you can support yourself during the exam, and ways you can support yourself after the exam. So we recommend that you make what's called an exam stress management plan. So it's just like we mentioned earlier, writing down the things that help you. So you know what you can do to support yourself before, what you can do to support yourself during, and what you can do to support yourself after. So these can be the things that we've mentioned in the webinar already, or things that you're already doing, but just having it written down for yourself, just so you know exactly what helps you before, during, and after. And just remembering that success is not always straightforward. So on the left, we have a straight arrow, and this could represent what people think success looks like. You straight, you just go through everything happens the way it's supposed to, and you reach the top. However, on the right hand side, we can see an arrow that has a lot of twists and turns and ups and downs. And this represents what success really looks like. There will be challenges, there'll be things that get in the way, there'll be ups and downs, but you'll still reach the top. So just remember that even though there might be setbacks and things that help you move forward, there's always going to be something that you have to overcome. And this is the way you reach the top, and this is how you get to success. So this is just a little meme,
Yeah.
a little GIF to motivate you, just showing that you can do it.
Positive self-talk, very important.
Yeah, some positive self-talk. And lastly, thank you for listening. On this last slide, you can see there are some helpful websites that you can use and access. So you can pause it here, take a picture, or note it down. But these are just some really useful websites and resources if you feel like you want to get some extra support. But also in school, you can always speak with your form tutor or the mental health lead in the school, who I'm sure you can provide you with some extra support. So that is all we have for today. Thank you for listening, and we hope you found it helpful.
Thank you.
Bye.